Hey everybody, it's Jimmy and Bill. Bill, I graduated high school in 1985. By 1987, I owned my first house.
Okay.
Okay? So what we're talking about today is we're comparing 1985 to 2025. Because think about it, in 1985, okay, I made some notes over here. You could literally, on one income, go on vacation, own a car, take care of your family, and just enjoy
Right.
yourself. Now, you basically need a side hustle, 24/7. You need the side hustle. You need multiple incomes to afford a house. And I just think the 80s were so much better than they are now.
Okay.
I really do.
All right.
I think the 1985 was so much better than 2025. Yes, I am aging myself, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about.
I don't miss the feathered hair.
Hey, it was a fun time.
Jean jackets, feathered hair. I
Yeah.
had to carry a blow dryer.
We're gonna talk. Yeah, we're gonna talk about real estate 1985 versus 2025.
Okay.
I'll give you like an example.
All right.
Home prices then, the median home price in 1985 was $80,000.
Yeah, I was 80, 85.
In 2025, it's around $400,000 to $450,000 nationally. Interest rates in 1985 were between 12 and 13%, but homes were cheaper. People were going to say,
Of course, yeah.
okay. In 2025, they hover around 7%, but prices are way up.
Okay.
Affordability. It was easier to buy a home on a single income in 1985. Now it takes multiple incomes to buy a house. And we see that every day.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What you get for your money? Bigger lots, more space, fewer HOA rules than in the 80s. HOAs went like nuts.
Well, yeah, HOAs, the pendulum swung so far to the other side with HOAs. Now things are swinging back the other direction, and they're, getting a lot of their teeth taken away.
Starter homes
Nuts.
then and now. In 1985, entry-level homes were common. In 2025, they barely exist.
Well, I mean, isn't that the problem that we've always discussed on the channel and in everything is that, yes, we need to build more homes because we're short homes, but we also need to make sure we're building affordable homes, not necessarily entry level, but let's just call them more homes of what we need. We don't need more $800,000 homes, $1 million homes, $2 million homes. We need homes that the average American family can afford.
Yep, sure. The role of investors, institutional buyers were basically non-existent in 1985. Now they compete with families for homes. Talk about that one.
I still disagree with that.
All right.
That everybody tries to put these institutional buyers on like they're going to come in and crush the market and they've taken everything away. Institutional buyers, at the last article that I read, and it's been a bit, not talking years, I'm talking a few months, it was something along the lines of they make up 5% of all sales. Like,
all right.
Even if they made up 20% of all sales, is that really hurting everybody else out there?
All right, let's talk about this one. First-time home buyers, 1985, early 20s. Today, closer to the mid-30s. Major shift in timelines. So now, and I think the average buyer is in the 50s now.
Yeah, they said the average buyer went up into the late 40s, early 50s. But and a lot of that I think too, again, this is statistics. Mm-hmm. So we start to go, again, I always do this and you know that. Well, where did they pull their data from? How long was their data set from? Are we just looking at a small little piece? Because right now, I would say that is accurate because the majority of people who have the money that can afford the houses are people in their late 40s, 50s, and so on, because they've either had a house, they've paid it off, or they've have a really, really small mortgage, and they're not borrowing to buy their next house. So the interest rates don't affect them.
All right, urban versus suburban trend. 1985 saw a suburban boom. 2025, a mix of urban appeal, but people still fleeing for space and affordabilities. So more people are leaving. Some people are leaving the suburbs to go even more away to rural areas. All right, Florida specifically, boom in the 80s with retirees and vacation homes. 2025, everyone's moving here now. Well, we have a less of people moving here, but
They're still moving here.
But they're still moving here.
Yeah.
But in 1985, we used to have on Long Island at the place called Nassau Coliseum. We used to have these conventions that you go there and you could buy a Florida house for $80,000.
Yeah, they used to market them, and the same thing with like Spring Hill, which is just north of us here in the Tampa Bay area, and because that's all the roads up there are very windy, and because there are hills, Spring Hill, and so but that was the market, and I have a lot of friends that moved down.
Spring Hill?
Yeah, because of the hills.
Renting then and now, rent was super affordable in the 80s. Today, it's as much as a mortgage or more. That's true.
Yeah, and one thing with these stats, again, I just throw these questions out there just for people to have food for thought. Obviously, they didn't give you the adjusted, because we have to take out, obviously, we made less money in the 80s. Homes would cost less, everything cost less in the 80s, but we're not adjusting for inflation to get a true number. But even if we did adjust for inflation, everything is still really high.
I bought a house a couple years after high school, and the interest rate was like 13.5%.
Yeah, I think I was in the 12s and I was ecstatic.
Yeah, but I made a lot less money. I probably made like $8 an hour or $9 an hour. Who knows what I was making back then. But my point is, yes, I'm a little biased. I do think the 80s were better than 2025, so all day long. But we had a really big recession towards 79, 80, 81. Then Reagan came in and changed a few things. And even after that, 81, 82 was tough,
Yeah.
Rates were crazy. But we're going to talk about lifestyle, tech, and how people lived. In the meantime, if you really like this kind of content, just consider subscribing. It really does help out the channel, and it's greatly appreciated. And remember, if you need a home inspector anywhere in Tampa Bay, I'm available, and I got a team of people. Or if you need a real estate agent, this is a big one. A lot of people have been reaching out. If you need a real estate agent anywhere in the country, we build a great network, and we'll hook you up. So let us know. The link's below, or call me or text me. My phone number is below. All right, let's go back to lifestyle, tech, and how people live. No smartphones in 1985, just landlines and maybe a beeper, different world. It was great. Like literally, I went to eat breakfast and there was 4 kids sitting, I guess, with some older family members, and all 4 kids were on their phone.
Yeah.
And I think they were talking to each other.
They're probably in a group chat or something crazy. Who knows what they do nowadays. But yeah, I do see everybody, a lot more people are on their phones. I mean, we try not to be on our phones while we're at dinner.
But we do it for business.
Yeah, but I mean, it's even still at dinner, I try not to get on my phone, when it's dinner time. It's like nothing, there's really nothing that critical.
I can imagine doing a home inspection. Like my average home inspection is about 250 photos, maybe 300, some of them.
Yeah.
The average home inspection. I can imagine taking 300 photos.
And taking them over to Eckerd's?
Take them over to Kodak. We used to have a thing in Long Island.
Oh, the booth.
The Kodak booth.
Yes, the booth.
We used to drop them off and they're like, all right, see you in 4 days.
Yep, I remember the booth, and then we would do Eckerd's here because the booths were a little bit farther away from my house. But I remember dropping them off at Eckerd Drugstore to get the photos done. Yeah, and then you had to pay to get the hard copies.
Work life, 9 to 5, pension jobs, no remote work. Now we got hybrid, remote gigs, works, and more flexible and more instability. It's true. Back in 1985, you just said, okay, I'm working from 9 to 5. It's just, that's how it was.
Yeah, but I could throw an argument out there that hybrid and remote work makes things a little bit better for people too, because they're not stuck to where they are. It opens up workers to other areas or even different markets around the globe. Example, my last buyer, they worked for an Asian company, but they were here in the United States. They were in Texas and then they relocated here, but they worked for an overseas company.
Interesting. A lot of people doing that. It's easy to do. Commute in cars. Everyone drove to work in 1985. In 2025, remote work is reshaping traffic and real estate demand.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing. We got enough traffic as it is. Keeping people off the road is I mean, think about how bad the traffic is. Let's talk about that from 1985 to now. You know what I
a lot
mean?
more,
Like,
yeah.
there's so much more traffic. Everything is so much more because there's more people too. So,
What about this one? Grocery stores and shopping. No Instacart. You drove to Kmart or the mall. I went to a mall in New Hampshire. We just got back from New Hampshire, and some cool videos coming up on that. So make sure you subscribe to check them out. The mall used to be, when I lived there, it was a hopping place. Now me and Tanya walked in there, and 4 out of the 5 stores were closed. It was like a ghost. It felt
Yeah.
weird.
yeah, I literally stopped at one of our local malls here in the Clearwater area. I had an appointment and I had a little bit of time and I didn't want to sit in the car. So I was like, let me go get a coffee, walk around the mall, stretch my legs, that kind of thing. And it had been, I mean, probably 2-3 years since I had been to this mall. And it was empty.
Scary.
It was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was absolutely empty. And then, because I'm used to the malls by my house, which I go in the middle of the day and it is packed.
But that's not like an indoor mall. Like we had a big mall on Long Island called Roosevelt Field Mall,
Yeah.
and it was a place to be. Okay, Saturday we're going to meet there.
Well, yeah, like in high school and
Yeah,
stuff.
like
yeah,
in
yeah,
high
yeah.
school.
That's what we used to do too.
Now
yeah.
the place is like, I haven't been in Roosevelt Field Mall in a long time. If any of you guys ever go to
Haven't been in
Roosevelt,
high school in a long time either.
yeah, Roosevelt Field Mall on Long Island, let me know how it's doing. All right. Entertainment at home, VHS, cable TV, no streaming. You planned your night around what's
Shows.
on.
Yes.
Like I used to watch, I think Tuesday nights was Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley.
Yep.
And I think Thursday nights was Mork and Mindy or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, literally, I wanted to get home to watch my TV shows.
Right, and then you did have reruns on like Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, you could hit the old ones, but it wasn't like you could skip ahead. It wasn't you could pause it. You know, you planned your time and you sat
the
there and
younger
watched
people
TV.
are going to say, well, that sucked. So now it's much easier. You can do it on demand. I don't know. I feel like it was nostalgia. You know, I feel like something cool about it.
I guess that's going to be one of those where how did you grow up? So what you're used to? Because I don't mind it, you know, but we also didn't have the crazy amounts of commercials and stuff on the TV. And then you didn't sit and binge TV all day and all night either, really.
No.
You know,
no.
you were out and about.
Raising kids played outside till streetlights
there
came
you go.
on, and it's not now it's a tablet, iPad, and GPS trackers. You know,
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, when we were kids, we played outside. And it was like, oh, the streetlight kicked on.
So I got to be home before I get in
gotta
trouble.
home.
Yep.
Community feel. This is an important one. Okay, tell us what you guys think. People knew their neighbors in the 80s. In 2025, you can feel more isolated, even in a busy area. Like people used to knock on our door at our house and be like, oh, hold on, somebody's at the door. Now if you knock on somebody's door, it's like, uh-oh, what's going on? Why is somebody knocking on my door?
Yeah, nobody knocks on doors. So there's communities that this is one of those things where it's like you can not know any of your neighbors or you can know all your neighbors. There's different communities around here where the neighborhood is tight-knit and knows, you know, more and more people. But then there's other communities that nobody knows anybody. And they're all, you know, there's hundreds of homes in there. So it's just different.
Cost of living, things were cheaper from milk to movie tickets, no kidding.
Yeah.
Travel and vacation, more affordable road trips in the 80s. Air travel today is more common, but more expensive, which it is. You know, the role of tech in daily life. 1985, no internet. 2025, everything's online, including how we buy houses. It's true. When you're buying a house, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go online.
Well, yeah, everybody shops. So the landscape of real estate has changed. We've had this conversation with multiple people recently. You know, that people shop online before they actually go to an open house or a showing. They're shopping online. That's why we have like 3D tours, quality photos, all this, that. You know, so you get a really good feel of the house before anybody actually goes and shows, or actually before anybody looks at the house.
Well, we're going to skip over money, jobs, and economy. If we have time, we're going to go back, but we're going to go to Florida then and now.
Okay.
Affordable in the Florida in the 80s. More retirees, snowbirds, and sleepy beach towns. That's all gone.
Yeah, there's still a few, but
And less and less.
less and less every day.
Okay. Because also, too, like, you know, you had, you know, Cedar Key or places like that,
Yep.
and then they get wiped out by hurricanes, and then they get rebuilt. You know,
They lose their charm.
They lose their charm.
Yeah.
And what do you got? What do you call that when you redo a town after it's like
Gentrification?
gentrification. That's happening all over the place in Florida. Affordable paradise. Florida was cheap. You could buy waterfront without selling a kidney. Yeah, try that now.
Right. I mean, there were certain areas that if you lived on the water, people kind of looked at you weird. Think about it. Like, where did like look at all the stuff over by the marina, all the waterfront homes that are by the marina, and how inexpensive they used to be. And I'm not talking even the 80s. I'm talking in the 2000s. You know, and who lived there? Most it was fishermen. You know, the commercial fishermen, charter captains, things like that. They lived on the water. That was what they did. Now it's you know, fast forwarding. Beachfront property is super, super desirable.
Yeah,
and
only
those people are
only
moving
the
out.
rich are going to be
Yeah,
able
and
to
it's
live on
slowly but surely they're all moving out.
real estate availability, so much more land and less regulation. And it's true. In the 80s, in Florida, you're like, oh yeah, this one comes with an acre, and people were like, oh, just an acre, you know?
Yeah, I remember guys at the firehouse buying property in Georgia and North Florida and things like that. You know, and it was like, this is a good deal. You know, I remember talking about it's getting a little expensive. It's $2,000 an acre.
Yeah, and now the salespeople are selling houses, new construction. They're like, listen, this house instead of 16 feet instead of 8 feet between your houses, now you have 16 feet. That's a luxury.
It is a luxury. You got to get over it, there, old man. Come on. I know that's your pet peeve.
It is my pet peeve.
You got to live on a cul-de-sac or a turn, on a road turn, because you get a pie wedge.
Weather perception. Hurricanes still concerned, but less high-profile coverage than that. We had a lot of hurricanes in the 80s,
Yeah.
but we didn't have the coverage like we did
Of course,
now. So
yeah. It's more about media outlets right now. So you can get it on YouTube. You can get 10 different channels. Everybody can give their opinion on it now, right? Instead of just you had 8, 10, 13, and that was it.
yeah.
44. Remember 44?
Yeah.
That might be before you got here.
Then we got the cable boxes. But
Yeah.
we're out Long Island, and then I had to break into the cable boxes and try to get more
the other channels.
or get the ones that are really hazy that you're not supposed to be watching, but we were able to.
Yeah, you put the dial halfway between, and sometimes you could get a channel like HBO or something.
Population growth dramatically higher now, which affects housing, traffic, and pricing. That's 100% true. Remote work, we already talked about. HOAs and new construction, very different regulations. Back then, you could build a lot more. Now it's, you know.
Well, and some of those regulations are good too, compared to what they were. Instead of just scraping down a community of trees and all this and wetlands and things like that, now they're really trying to take more, you know, environmentally conscientious building practices, utilizing what's naturally there. So if you go to some of these, at least out there on the east side, you'll see it, where, you know, there's more winding roads that are going around that big giant 100-year-old oak tree or the pond, things like that.
All right, let's go to theme parks tourism. Still huge in both years, but prices have increased. I went to the, you know, Disney back in the 80s, and my parents weren't, you know, they didn't like spending a lot of money. They could afford it. Now, forget about it. You're talking about some people, like one person went to and got lunch. It was on the news. They went and got lunch for them and their kids, like 3 kids. It was like over $1,000 or something.
What?
Yeah, that's what he said.
No, come on.
It was on the news.
For 3 people?
No, it was like
I'm at
5
Disney
people.
all the time.
Yeah, well, maybe they eat at a really nice place.
Jesus, come on.
Okay, more health focused, more health focused, tech-driven life today. Simply laid out backspace, simpler laid back space.
Pace.
Than in the 80s. Were we more hustle and bustle in the 80s?
I think we've traded. I think people forget. I think that in the 80s, you know, when you were working, you were working. You didn't have the cell phones, the ease of communication like emails and text messages. You had to type letters out. You had to put them in the mail. Things took a lot longer. You had to drive somewhere to get things done. So you can get more now done. And I think I think it's just we've exchanged one hustle for another hustle.
All right, so who wins? 1985 or 2025? Affordability edge goes to 1985. 1985 wins home prices and everyday living costs. That's what I think. Tech and convenience edge. 2025 wins for smart homes, instant info, remote work. Stress and hustle culture. 1985 was a slower pace. 2025 can feel exhausting. This is what I came up with. So I think 1985 things were like easier.
Yeah, I would say so.
Opportunities. There are more flexibilities and initiatives today, but also more instability. I think things are more instability here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that leading to like what you just said with hustle and bustle and more relaxed feel. Think about it. Remember, like if you weren't home, you weren't home. Nobody panicked. You know, if they called, they left you a voicemail if you had a recorder at the time, and you would get called back when you were at work. You went to work, you clocked in, you clocked out. It's not like your phone was ringing for work. You're not getting emails. You know, it wasn't this 24/7 access to information and data. You know, so I think that it was definitely a little bit, like I said, swap for hustle bustle.
Okay, for home ownership, it was more realistic in the 80s, especially for young adults. It was easy to buy a home. I'm living proof.
Yeah.
I think by the 90s, I've owned 3 houses. Personal freedom. We had more tools today, but are we freer? So we have more tools to do things today, but
Well, that traps you to your job, to
everything, yeah.
even still, like, look, you know, phone calls after a certain hour, nobody would call. I remember when I was growing up, don't call before 10, you know, on a weekend, you know, because it's family time and breakfast and sleeping in and whatever, right? And then don't call after like 7 or 8, you know, you didn't call late at night unless it was somebody that you knew specifically. It was just, and then 5 o'clock, it was off. Nobody would call anybody. Who would call you after 5 o'clock? It was just different.
Community connection is stronger in the 80s. So what do you guys think? It was easier community back then. Would you rather raise a family in 2025 or 1985? What do you think?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
I don't know, the 80s were cool. I enjoyed it.
So,
I kind of liked life before cell phones.
all right, let me ask you
You
this.
know what I mean? Because like that was kind of a big thing. I remember when the cell phones started coming out, and that was like, look at that thing.
Is it easier to ask a girl out on a date in 1985 or 2025?
2025, because all you gotta do is text. You don't have to be up. You don't have to.
Or do these apps?
The apps and the whatever. You don't have to actually stand in front of somebody and actually have a normal conversation.
Like literally go up to a girl and say, hey, my name is Jimmy.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? You guys obviously know from the way I was talking about this subject on this video that 1985 was much better for me than 2025. Maybe not financially, but just life in general. It was just easier.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to depend on the person, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but
let us know. Let us know.
There was still Democrats, there was still Republicans, but they kind of got along, you know, at the thing. It was just the politics. It's just, I'm not getting into that on this video, but it's horrible. It's really, really is horrible. We all live in the same country, but we're still infighting.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. Anyways, that's today's video. Tell us what you think. Tell me, what do you think? 1985 or 2025? What you thought was better? And listen, watch this video here. I picked it out just for you guys, and consider subscribing. I know I say like a broken record, but it's important. It's very motivational, and it's greatly appreciated. We'll talk to you in the next one. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.